Hey, everybody, welcome back to another episode of Butterfly Soldiers, and I'm your host, Rufaro. This week we are on episode 6. Can you believe it? Feels like time has flown. Episode 6 of Butterfly Soldiers. This week's is called How Going to the Gym Saved My Sanity. This is going to be a personal story week. I'm just going to share something that has been happening and keeps on happening for about the last 2 years or so, and something that I really, really, really battled with. And I thought it's almost like a story time. Today, this week's is about a story time. And I'm going to talk about my gym life and how gym life really did help save my sanity. So, as always, we're going to get into it. Sit back, relax, and let's get talking. All right. So, currently, I don't know when you're going to be watching this or listening to this. We're about halfway through 2022. And at the beginning of this year, like the beginning of many years before, I would lay out my year and I would say, okay, this is going to be my New Year's resolution. This year is going to be great. All of this stuff is going to happen. I must be honest though, the last couple of years after, especially after the pandemic came through, I really wasn't doing much, just trying to survive. But I had gotten to a point where I knew something was wrong. Now, I'm going to take you back to about 2 years ago. I was not in a good place. I was lethargic. I was working. In fact, I was working more than I've ever done, I think, in my entire life. But there was something missing on the inside of me. I was very robotic. I was lethargic. I was actually mad at people who seemed to me to be out there crushing their goals. Externally, like I said, I was working more than I've ever done before, seemingly looked like I was successful in what I was doing. And yet it rang hollow. There was such a disconnect. If there was ever a time in my life when I thought I was battling anxiety and depression, it was at that time. Now, I'm coming from a pretty strong African background, and I know it's just the Black community at large. We've had to catch up with the rest of the world that talks about things about depression and things about anxiety. So you can imagine myself, who's never actually admitted that anything was ever wrong, to get to a point where everything looks like it was okay, but I knew that it really wasn't okay. It kind of caught me for a loop. So it's 2 years ago. Something just isn't fitting right. I'm busy. I'm doing what I'm doing, but I know that I'm running on fumes. Something just isn't sitting right, and that something continued to grow and to grow and to grow. And in the process of this happening, I tried everything I knew. Right? I did the usual. I self care. I did massages, manicures, pedicures. I would have a glass of wine on the balcony, glass of wine at sunset, wake up and watch the sunrise, the whole thing. I tried it all to see if this was going to help alleviate this building pressure that I could feel was coming up. Nothing worked. I became desperate. Now, if you've ever been in a situation like that, and especially coming from a Christian background, we're told to count our blessings, right? It's not as bad. I mean, I've got everything else. I've got a pretty decent job. My money's all right. I'm healthy. Baby boy is healthy. My mom's fine. Everything is okay. Why are you feeling like this? All that did was help me to make me feel worse. Because now, on top of all of that, now I'm feeling ungrateful. There is a reason of why I'm going through all of this, but we'll get into that a little bit later. So here I was, desperate, and I'm at the situation one night I was struggling to sleep. And how I knew that things were actually getting really, really bad was, in order for me to sleep, I started to take some sort of a sleep medication. I had to sleep somewhere. So I started off with the light melatonin, the gummies with like the 5 milligrams that turned into 10 because 5 wasn't working. That turned into 20. That turned into 25. Turned into popping as many as I could to get me to 50. And full disclosure here, I actually had a weed pen that I was like, maybe this is going to help me to sleep. Because I was desperate. I was like, I need to go to sleep. One night I had taken what I could take to sleep at about 9 o'clock, 9:30. At midnight I'm awake. And I thought, well, I can't keep increasing this dosage. Something has to be figured out. And this is where I woke up in the middle of the night and I had to have a conversation with myself. And I was like, okay, we can't keep doing this for the sake of yourself and for the sake of where you need to go. We need to start to look this thing square in the face. And I had just had a conversation with a friend, and she'd said a statement that really rang with me about a week prior. And she said, what you won't look at in the face is always going to beat you. And spoke about it randomly about something, but you know, but it really stuck with me. And that kept coming back to me that night. And I was like, okay, let's take a look at things. Let's lay all the cards on the table and let's take a look at this thing. God, check. He's fine. We know that he's fine. He's been fine for the last however millennia. He's okay. The plan that I have in place for the things I needed to do, check. We're fine. I know my plan back and forth. It makes sense. It's coming in where it's supposed to be. I just got to knock out the goals. We're doing okay. That left me. Ding. Hence was the problem. At this stage, at the moment when I realized that, wait, something must be, this is up to me to be able to fix. I need to be able to do this. I thought I needed something strong to drink in the middle of the night. But in hindsight, I really realized that if you realize that the problem is you, you're in the best possible position, because if you are the problem, you can be the solution at the same time. Anyway, let me not get ahead of myself. So after this, I thought, okay, um, this is what I know. I know that I might be the one who's standing in my own way, which means I should be able to be the one to kind of guide myself out of this. Next thing that I decided to do was, I seem to be caught in this dark fog all the time, but it seems loud, but I can't pinpoint on anything. Now, I don't know if you've ever felt this before, but if you're in a state of depression, or you're not in a good space mentally, it's almost like it's quiet, but the quiet is always screaming. And I've always been very inquisitive. I read a lot of books. I watch a lot of things. And one that I was particularly trying to read about mental wellness and mental health was talking about how you have to listen to what the voices are saying. Because, like, again, like my friend said, something that you can't confront. You don't know what it is. I had to figure out, had to give this thing a name. What is the noise actually saying? And I broke it down in as much as I could. And this is what I found. My job was telling me what I was qualified for and qualified and not qualified for. And so I would get into the space of whatever work I was doing. And if they told me that I was qualified, I felt qualified. If I was not qualified, it spilled over into other areas of my life. My past was telling me what I was worth. And in this world we live in, and in my own personal mistakes, it really wasn't. There was a lot of stuff that when you think about it, I'm like, well, I kind of did that. And it destroys your worth. And I had been through a divorce, and in the Christian community, in an African Christian community, it was a difficult one to go through. This was, yeah, over over 9, 10 years ago now. But at that point, it it put a mar in my life that I actually hadn't realized that I was still carrying. And then the mistakes that I made, they were telling me that you're lacking. These are current mistakes. Okay. This is mistakes in friendships, mistakes in planning, mistakes, whatever, were telling me that you're lacking. So now I was able to pinpoint what all this noise was that was going on in my head, that though I wasn't paying attention to it, it was affecting me. And all of those voices kept talking and talking and talking, getting louder and louder and louder. And then I realized, okay, I've been to this point many times before. If this point that I was in my life was like a regular spot, the doorman would know me by name. Hey, Rufara, good to have you back. Oh, really? It's really nice to be here again. Something had to be different. You know, these cycles of like, oh, things are great, things are great. Oh my goodness, something's wrong, something's wrong. Shake it off, shake it off, shake it off. Things are great, things are great. Cycle is wrong. It kept on going like that over and over and over again. That night, when this whole situation started, I realized that I have to move. Now, I'm a fan of Matrix, a huge fan of Matrix, especially the first one. I am a bit of a sci-fi nerd. And there's a scene at the beginning of Matrix 1 where Trinity is on the rooftop and she is running gung ho from the agents, right? She gets to the point where she's kneeling by a chimney, and for all intents and purposes, it looks like she's trapped, right? The agents are coming from her this side, and she happens to take a look, and she glances over and she sees this teeny tiny little window that is like way over there on the other building, the next building from where she was. In that moment, I can imagine she's thinking, well, it's either we're going to stay here and die, or we're going to take a shot. No matter how small it looks, we're going to take a shot. And she bolts up and she just starts running. She gets to the edge of the building and she literally flies. Yeah, flies through this little window, tumbles down this flight of stairs and lands on her back, guns at the ready, pointing at the window that she just came through. And she says these famous words: "Get up, Trinity." Man, I felt that. I don't know how many times I've watched that, but I have felt that. That's what I felt like in that moment. Get up, Rufaro. You gotta get up. And I gotta tell you, I was not like Trinity. She got up and she went on and she did her whole thing and she was able to get out of the matrix. It wasn't like that for me. I gotta tell you the truth. It was more like a very slow, sad process of one elbow down. I kind of halfway got up and I kind of collapsed back into it. And then I lay down to take a nap. And then I kind of woke up and then I kind of curled one leg underneath me to try to get up. And that wasn't working. And I had to switch legs. It was a very long and slow, painful process. But at that point, I told myself, get up. You got to do this. And in the discovery of what I was going to do to get to this place, this is where I discovered the gym. Now, I've always been pretty physically fit. I enjoy going to the gym. It's not something that was strange to me. It wasn't something that was new. It's just I would often do it for the wrong reasons. Um, I don't like restriction on food. Don't tell me my portion size. I can figure that out by myself. So if I wanted to lose weight or if I wanted to stay a certain weight, I would go to the gym. It was just something that I did, either starve to death or work out. What are we going to pick? So I wasn't a stranger to the gym. But I then discovered that there was so much more to the gym. Now, the reason why I got to this conclusion was I said, okay, I know God is fine. And I know that he's the same yesterday, today, and tomorrow. I went back and said, all right, I'm going to attack my devotional time more than I ever have before. I don't know how to do it, but I do know where to go. And I must say that was thanks to my mom, thanks to growing up the way that I did in the church. I'll have another story time for when I completely left it and I said, forget it in my early 20s. I'm not doing this anymore. We're out. But even that taught me that there is a safe place called home. And I was going to come for it with everything that I have. So in my devotional time and in constantly reading and searching and reading and searching, mind you, this was not those reels that you see of like somebody opening a Bible and there's great music in the background and it's like revelation after revelation. No, this was very, very ugly and very, very painful. It was moments when I didn't want to do it. I really didn't want to read my word that day. And I was just like, just going to go do it. Weeks would go on by when I was reading my U version and it was ticking, but I was just ticking off the check boxes. Sometimes I just wouldn't do it and then I'll just hit that catch me up button and it's like, oh, you're on track. But even in the doing that and the stops and the starts and the doing it just to check buttons, every single time something will be dropped. Something will be dropped. Even though I couldn't feel it and I couldn't see it, something was dropped. And one of those drops was, if you can move your body, you can move the rest. What? Okay. I like to, be in shape. Anyway, we're going to start to go to the gym. This is how it then got tied together for me, that your physical body can mirror what's going on with your spiritual self, your mental self, your emotional self. We are our bodies, but we actually are a spirit that lives in a body that has a soul. This is a belief that I have. But we listen to our bodies more than anything else. We go by feelings, which is in your body. We go by cravings, which is in your body. We go by the goosebumpy feelings, which is in your body. We use our bodies a whole lot more than we use the other parts of ourselves. And so I then realized, the thought then came through, that if I can get my body to be disciplined in a certain way, if I can get my body to respond, which is the biggest thing that I deal with, maybe I can get the rest of me to start to respond too, meaning my mental, meaning my spiritual. So I started researching properly this time about what happens when you go to the gym and what happens with your body. And I discovered that there's major parts of the body. Listen, the body is an amazing thing. We self-heal and we learn and we grow and we do all these amazing things. But if you break down the actual body in itself, I broke it down into the following parts that I thought, okay, these are the things that are the main parts of the body, right? Disclaimer here. I am not a physical trainer. I am not educated in any of these things. This just came up with my personal study. Google, my own body. These are my opinions, this is not medical advice. Please, if you need to do anything, always make sure that you seek medical advice. Um, I'm not, this is not actually giving us medical advice. So the body itself, I was like, okay, we have the core, we've got your back, we've got your legs, and we've got your arms. And I was like, we're going to take all of these. I'm going to take these different sections and I'm going to break them down over a couple of weeks. And I'm going to tell you how each body part correlates to your actual life. So we're going to start with the core. Who doesn't want to start with the core? Everyone wants good abs, right? We all like that thing that goes on there. So this week we're going to be focusing on the core. Now the core is a funny thing. It's not just the abs like we like to think about it. I'm just going to read something for you guys real quick. So most people think that the core is just your abs, but it's actually way more than that. It's your pelvic muscles, your mid and your lower back muscles, and even your hip muscles are included in there. And they all work together to support your spine and your skull. A strong core improves your balance and your stability. And you need stable core muscles to be upright and balanced. Did you know that these things are what give you a great posture? Really good. And a great posture, it helps improve your breathing. Your balance opens up your airways. Guys, there's so much to do in this as well. So, to get physical, you need to have a strong core. So, I started to look at all the different aspects about what is it exactly in a core that, as what are the benefits of having a strong core, right? So, we talked about balance and we talked about posture. Balance in your life. Now, how many things when we take a look at our own lives seem to be off balance, right? Either focus is way too much on work and everything else is lacking, or your focus is try to be spread too thin and you can never find to get the perfect cadence between the things that you need to do, right? And then posture, how you actually come across in life, right? Because the core helps support your spine and your skull. This is going to address the way that you actually stand up in life. Now, your posture being your core, if you take it into your real life situation, I thought, okay, well, if you have a good posture, that means the way that you actually appear to the rest of the world is upright. You look like you're not slouched over, hiding things in a dark space, but rather you're upfront. You're open. You're proud, and you're standing straight. So I thought, okay, we've got those things kind of put together about the way the core works physically and the way the core works in the rest of the world. I thought, okay, every day that I'm going to the gym and I'm focusing on the gym, on the core, I have to find something else to correlate it to. And I have a couple of things that I figured were two main aspects that I thought when you take it into real life, these are the things that represent your core. The first one is your value set. Your value set for me Your value set for me is the thing that your core beliefs, right? Core, pun intended. Your core beliefs, right? These are the things that you say, this is what I believe, and this is how I set my life up for myself around me. So I had to decide, okay, faith wise, what is it that I genuinely believe? Not what my parents taught me, not what the time in the church taught me, not what my friends and those around me told me. What is my actual belief? Like, how far do I want my belief system to go part to get into my life? I had to be clear on that for myself. I had to be able to decide and to really take in, when I say I'm a Christian, what does that mean exactly? What is my value set on marriage, friendships, children, money? These things take some time because it's not done overnight, but it's the same way that, if you just do a couple of core exercises today, does that mean that tomorrow you're going to have a 6-pack or an 8-pack or even a 1? No, it doesn't. It takes time. But I now knew where to focus my energies on. I had to figure out what my core values are. And once I figured them out, I had to get them stronger. How do you get your core values stronger? It takes practice and repetition. And you have to apply the same thing into your day-to-day life. So if a core value of mine is that I believe in hard work. If I really do believe in hard work, that means that whenever I show up at my regular job, I'm going to give it everything I have for the hours I'm clocking in and clocking out. If I have said I'm going to help out in the community for a day, when I get there, I'm going to do the best that I can from the time I'm in to the time I'm out. That's how you exercise that muscle. Then you can tell that this thing really is a core belief of mine because you've done it over and over again and it becomes stronger and easier and easier and easier. So that was my first core value. My second one, I was like, okay, the same way that your core supports your spine, excuse me, and your skull, I had to now take a look at my own support structure. right? So this was my friends and this was my family. I believe it was episode one, actually, how to choose your tribe. I get into this with a whole lot more detail about the way to differentiate who your tribe should consist about and who the people around you shouldn't consist of, and how to know the difference, right? So this had to do with my support structure. I had to strengthen my support structure. And in doing this, the same way that you got to work on your core muscles so that your support structure, which means your spine and your hip, your pelvic muscles and all of that, are stronger, I had to, first of all, take a look at the quality of my own support structure and starting off with myself. If I want to have good people around me and if I want to have a certain kind of person around me, am I that person myself? Because it's very unfair to put that on other people or the things around you and say, I need you to be like this. Um, but I myself, I want you to be a loyal and a faithful friend, but I myself am not loyal and faithful on my own. I want to be surrounded with people with dreams and visions and high aspirations. Well, do I have dreams and visions and high aspirations? So I did a lot of that introspective. I started the journey of having that and then started to weed out the things that I didn't need in my support structure because you're only as strong as your weakest link. And so this part was a little bit difficult and it required a lot of truth from myself and it required looking at people for who they actually are, not who I wanted them to be. Because as much as you might like the idea of someone, that doesn't mean that that's necessarily who they are. And I had to work on that. And so there were some people that were not going to be good for my support structure. I'll give you some examples of the characteristics that I had to kind of get out there. Um, Negative complaining Nancy's. This one was a tough one because I was always complaining myself. There were people that I had around me that it didn't matter what was happening. Whether we were, in fact, we could have been out on a on a quick vacation on a trip and somebody just keeps talking about how awful everything is. The food is terrible. My order was wrong. The room is too cold. This is horrible. That's that the kind of negative Nancy that I'm talking about, like that. Um I had to check myself too, to be able to stop my whinging and stop my complaining and create a good environment around me. So it was a kind of like a two-edged sword at this point. I had to start to figure out, okay, in my support structure, who's the one that generally has more encouragement than discouragement? You know the kind of people that you have around me. If you go around you, if you go and make a suggestion like, um, I think right now I'd like to start a new venture. And what you hear is, well, you're not educated for that, or why would you leave such a good job? Or there are other people who do that already. What makes you think? That's the kind of situation where the encourages rather than the discourages. And I also needed people around me who were a little bit mature in the understanding that life is never linear. There are moments where I have to withdraw and retract and retreat to be by myself for a season, for a reason. And they understand that. There are some friends out there that you cannot say, I'm not available this weekend or I have to do something without you because it becomes personal. It becomes, you've ghosted me, iced me. What are you doing that doesn't have me in it, that doesn't have me involved? Those are the kind of situations that I had to figure out who did I need in my support structure. At this point, it had finally hit home that I was revamping. I was completely changing my approach to where I was and how to get out of the kind of place that I was. And I needed the right support structure around me. You could sing until you're blue in the face about how you want better, you want to do better, you want all of this stuff better. But if the people around you do not help you create that environment, you're going to lose steam and you're going to eventually go back to the old you. So that was the support structure that I decided, okay, let's fix this so that when I'm now lacking or I'm slacking or I want to go back to the old version, I want to go back to the old person, they're going to be there to say, no, sis, you've already come from this part. Keep going. Or you're not alone. It looks difficult. It looks like a mess where you are, but from where I am, I can see improvements in this and in this and in this and in this. And if I'm looking for that for other people, I really had to be able to give that myself. So this was a new challenge. And so what I discovered was, okay, I need to kind of kickstart myself in getting onto this journey and getting onto this journey the right way. So I looked around in my neighborhood and I discovered there was a gym that had a 6 week boot camp going on. And then they had a whole thing like lose, I believe it was 10 pounds or 20 pounds, whatever it was in the 6 week, you could choose. And I chose one of the programs and I said, okay, I'm going to dedicate myself to do this thing. And every day that I'm going to the gym, I was going there 5 times a week. Every day that I'm going to the gym, while I'm physically getting fit in these aspects, I'm purposefully walking out these other aspects of my life. Nobody's going to come and save you and do these things for you. And what I've discovered now is that when you're sick and tired of being sick and tired, congratulations, you're ready. And as much as it's like, well, it was easy for you because you got to that realization, it really wasn't. I just got tired of being in that same place over and over and over again and being in that place that I couldn't figure out what was going on. And I really felt like I was slipping. I had to save me. So nobody else is going to come and tell you, you know what, I'm going to do this part for you while you can sit back and relax. If you're not yet ready to take those kind of steps, then maybe it's not hurting enough. I know that sounds horrible. It's like, because you don't know how bad these things are for me, or you don't know how bad I've had it. And you're right, I really don't. But you do. And when it's that bad, you're going to do whatever you need to do to get out of it. And a lot of it you can't do by yourself. I had to reach out to that support structure once I had whittled it down to the ones that had to be there to let them know that this is what I'm dealing with, this is what I'm going through. Sometimes you don't have people like that in your life, and sometimes they're just not there. You're genuinely on your own for that season, for whatever reason it is. My encouragement to you is that you're never really alone if you've decided to walk with God. And in the moments that you ask Him for a support structure that's going to make sense, and you're willing to learn what you need to bring to the table to do this for yourself as well, He will bring you the people that you need in your life. And I was I was lucky that in that moment when I prayed about that, He did show me some things. Some people's characters that I never realized was there really did pop up. Some things about myself that I had to swallow too also popped up. But anyway, I said all that to say, when you get to that point where I really cannot stay like this any longer, you are now ready to make that next step. And when I said I was going to sign up for this gym and I put my money there because, if I put my money there, I'm going to have to get myself out of bed every single day to go and get this. I wrote down these things that I needed to do. I researched what the details into what are the core muscles, what does it do, how do you get them stronger, how do you do all of this. Let me find the supporting things on what values are, which means I had to read more. I researched more. What I was feeding on before wasn't helping me anyway, and binging on Netflix series or whatever the case wasn't working for me anyway. And so let's try something different. So I minimized the time I spent on social media, on the things that I watched, and I started to change my diet, even the things that I consumed through my ears and my eyes, to something different. I found any books that I could on values, on friendships. I started to consume anything that I could. As I strengthened my body, I was strengthening the parts. So after this, we're gonna get through other episodes about the back, the legs, the arms, all those kind of things, and what each body part does, and what I tied it to my actual life. So, am I in a good, perfect position? Ta-da! No, I'm not. I'm really not. But I do have a lot more tools now, and I have not had an episode like that in a while. I've definitely had bad days, but it doesn't get as bad as it was then because I have learned some tools on how to not allow myself to get there. That's it for today's episode. As always, guys, I would like you to share it, comment, let me know what you think. Let me know any ideas that you've had. Let me know if you're in those places where I was before. And if you're out of it, how did you get out of it? Because I use the gym. A lot of other people use many other things, meditation and all sorts of stuff. I'm really interested to know how other people are able to get themselves out of those dark spots. Until then, always remember that if I can do it, so can you. I'll catch you next time. Bye.